He thought leaving me for a younger woman was the ultimate betrayal, until I became his stepmother overnight. Now, every family gathering is a twisted reminder of the mistake he'll never escape. Revenge never tasted this sweet. For 12 years, Sophia Lancaster had built her life around her husband, Daniel. Their marriage had started with love, passion, and promises of a future filled with success and happiness. She had stood by his side as he struggled to build his career, sacrificing her own dreams so he could chase his. Late nights, tight budgets, canceled vacations. She had endured it all, believing that they were a team, that their sacrifices were temporary, and that one day they would reap the rewards together. And for a while, it seemed like they had. Daniel's hard work paid off, and he climbed the corporate ladder faster than either of them expected. Promotions led to bigger paychecks, which led to a bigger house in a gated community, expensive dinners and luxury vacations. Sophia never minded that she was in the background, managing their home, supporting his ambitions. She had always thought that's what love was: selfless, unwavering, patient. She was so blind. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything fell apart. Sophia had come home early from running errands, expecting to find the house empty. Instead, she found Daniel's laptop open on the kitchen counter, a notification flashing on the screen. She hadn't meant to invade his privacy, but the name caught her attention. "Baby, last night was amazing. When can I see you again?" Her breath hitched. "Baby?" Her hands shook as she clicked. A thread of messages appeared, dozens of them. Flirty, intimate, explicit. Her stomach churned as she read the name at the top. Haley. She clicked on the profile. Haley Williams, 22 years old, a college student. Her head spun. She could have been their babysitter, if they had kids. The front door opened. She barely had time to process the shock before Daniel strolled in, looking at her with mild confusion. "You're home early." Sophia turned the laptop screen toward him, her eyes blazing. "What is this?" Daniel sighed, barely looking guilty. Instead, he rolled his eyes, as if she were overreacting. "Sophia, don't be dramatic." "Dramatic? You're having an affair with someone half my age." He exhaled heavily, running a hand through his hair. "Soph, look. I didn't want you to find out this way, but I think we should separate." Her world stopped. She stared at him, her chest tight, her hands cold. "Separate?" He nodded, arms crossed like this was just a business deal. "I need something fresh. Something exciting. We've been stuck in the same routine for years, and I can't do this anymore." Sophia's breath came in short, sharp gasps. "You mean you can't do me anymore? That's what this is really about, isn't it?" Daniel didn't deny it. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to cry in front of him. "I gave you everything, Daniel," she whispered. "I put you first, always. I was there when you had nothing. And now that you have everything, I'm disposable?" His gaze remained indifferent. "I'll help you move out. You can stay with your parents until you figure things out." The humiliation was suffocating. Not only had he cheated on her, but he had already decided her fate, like she was a burden to be discarded. The days that followed were a blur of pain and humiliation. The house, the one she had decorated, cleaned, and turned into a home, was no longer hers. Daniel and his young mistress flaunted their relationship openly, their photos plastered on social media like she had never existed. People whispered, pitied her, and worst of all, she had nowhere to go. Sophia had given everything to her marriage. Now she had nothing, but if Daniel thought she was going to disappear quietly, he was gravely mistaken. Sophia had never felt so lost. Days turned into weeks, and the pain of Daniel's betrayal still clung to her like a second skin. The house was gone. Her marriage was gone. And the life she had spent over a decade building had crumbled overnight. She had no plan, no direction, only the quiet, burning rage of a woman who had been discarded like an old sweater. The worst part? The world kept moving. Daniel and his little Haley paraded their relationship all over social media, treating their affair like some grand romantic fairy tale. Meanwhile, Sophia was left picking up the pieces, trying to figure out who she even was without him. Then, one evening, she received an unexpected call. "Sophia, it's Richard Lancaster." She froze. Daniel's father, of all the people she expected to hear from, he was not one of them. Richard Lancaster was a man of power, influential, wealthy and coldly intimidating. He had always been an imposing figure, the kind of man whose mere presence could silence a room. Unlike his reckless son, Richard was calculated, ruthless, and dangerously intelligent. And yet he had always been kind to her. But why was he calling now? "Richard," she said carefully, gripping the phone. This is unexpected." There was a pause. Then, his deep voice came through, steady and controlled. "I heard what Daniel did to you." His voice carried no sympathy, only quiet disapproval, like a man assessing a foolish mistake. Sophia swallowed hard. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied smoothly. "I just wanted you to know that I'm ashamed of him. He was raised better than this. And frankly, I think you deserved better." Sophia blinked. Daniel's father, this cold, powerful man, was calling her to say he was on her side? Something inside her cracked, and she suddenly felt the weight of everything she had been holding in. "Thank you," she whispered. "Are you free for dinner?" The invitation stunned her. You want to have dinner?" she asked hesitantly. Richard exhaled. "Consider it an apology on behalf of my idiot son. We can talk, or not, but you shouldn't be alone right now." Sophia wasn't sure what to expect when she walked into the high-end restaurant the next evening. She had dressed carefully, a black dress that hugged her curves in a way Daniel never appreciated. Her makeup polished but not overdone. She refused to look like a broken woman. If she was meeting Richard Lancaster, she was going to do it with her head held high. When she entered, Richard was already waiting. Dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, he exuded the same authority he always had. But when his eyes landed on her, there was something different. A warmth, a quiet approval. "You look beautiful," he said smoothly, standing as she approached. She hesitated before taking her seat. "Thank you." The evening unfolded in a way she never expected. At first, their conversation was cordial, lingering on polite small talk. But as the night went on, their walls began to lower. Richard spoke about his disappointment in Daniel, how he had always been reckless, how he had never truly appreciated what he had. Sophia, in turn, spoke for the first time without holding back, about how much she had sacrificed, about how deeply Daniel had humiliated her. Richard listened, really listened, and for the first time since the divorce she felt seen. As the evening stretched on, something shifted between them. A moment, a spark. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the way Richard looked at her with something that wasn't just sympathy but admiration. Or maybe it was the way she felt safe with him, in a way she had never felt with Daniel. When dinner ended, he walked her to her car. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation, just an undeniable energy between them. As she reached for her door handle, he spoke. "You're stronger than he ever deserved, Sophia." She turned, meeting his gaze. "I don't feel strong." "You are." His voice was steady, certain. "And you're not alone." For the first time in weeks, she believed it. And for the first time in her entire life, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she had been looking at the wrong Lancaster all along. The wedding was small, intimate, and scandalous as hell. Sophia stood at the edge of the vineyard, the sun dipping low in the sky, bathing the rolling hills in gold. The ceremony had been quiet, just a handful of close friends and associates, far from the extravagant circus that had been her first wedding to Daniel. This was different. This was real. She turned her head slightly, catching sight of her new husband, Richard Lancaster, standing beside her, raising a glass to the gathering. Even at 62, he was effortlessly commanding. His presence alone was enough to silence a room. He looked at her as if she was something to be cherished, not a prize to be won or a convenience to be tolerated. The world had yet to find out. Daniel had yet to find out. But he would, and she couldn't wait. She didn't have to wait long. The news hit like a nuclear bomb the moment the wedding announcement was made public. Daniel's reaction? Predictable. First disbelief, then rage. A week after the wedding, he called her, his voice nearly shaking with fury. "You're joking." She smirked, twirling the diamond ring on her finger. "Oh, Daniel, you always did have trouble believing I could do better than you. You married my father?" "Yes," she said, savoring the weight of the word. "Yes, I did." Silence, then a sharp, humorless laugh. "This is some kind of sick revenge plot, isn't it?" She leaned back in her chair, enjoying herself more than she probably should. Oh no, revenge was just a delicious bonus. But moving up in life? That was inevitable. She heard the sound of something shattering in the background. Probably a whiskey glass. knowing him. "This is disgusting," he spat. "You were my wife, and now I'm your stepmother," she said sweetly. "Which means you will respect me accordingly." The call ended with Daniel cursing her name, but she could only laugh. If Sophia thought the phone call was satisfying, the first official family gathering was absolute perfection. It was a formal event at the Lancaster estate, a charity gala, attended by high-profile guests. She arrived on Richard's arm, his hand resting proudly on the small of her back, a silent claim that left no room for doubt. All around them, whispers followed, shocked stares, guests murmuring, trying to process the fact that Sophia Lancaster was back, but this time at the top. And then she saw him. Daniel stood near the bar, visibly tense, gripping his drink too tightly. Next to him, his young wife, Haley, clung to his arm like a lifeline, looking nervous. She had thought she had won when she stole Sophia's husband. Now she was starting to realize she had only inherited a man who was unraveling. Sophia almost pitied her, almost. As she and Richard approached, Daniel's entire body stiffened. "Daniel," Richard greeted smoothly, raising his glass. "Son." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Dad." And then, the moment she had been waiting for. He turned to her, his fists tightening at his sides. Sophia smiled sweetly, tilting her head. "Aren't you going to say hello, Daniel?" His lips barely moved. "Hello, Sophia." She arched a brow, savoring it. "Sophia?" she repeated. "That's not very polite. You know what you should call me." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "You can't be serious." Richard placed a firm hand on Daniel's shoulder, his voice calm but unyielding. "We are serious. She's your stepmother now. Show some respect." Daniel actually looked like he might explode. His face turned red, his grip on his drink so tight she half expected the glass to shatter. But in front of the assembled crowd he had no choice. "Fine," he ground out through clenched teeth. And then, the crowning moment. "Hello, Mother." A shiver of satisfaction ran through her. Haley, standing beside him, looked positively mortified. It was clear she had never signed up for this kind of family drama. She whispered something to Daniel, her expression turning uneasy, and Sophia saw the exact moment doubt started creeping in. "Good." As Richard led her away, his hand steady against her lower back, she finally let herself breathe in the victory. Not only had she moved on, she had moved up. Sophia had never lived like this before. Her mornings were spent sipping coffee on the balcony of the Lancaster estate, overlooking perfectly manicured gardens that stretched far beyond what she once thought possible. Staff attended to her every need, but it was Richard's attention that mattered most. Unlike Daniel, who had taken her devotion for granted, Richard cherished her. "Your car is waiting downstairs," he told her one morning as he kissed her temple. "I had it custom designed, just the way you like." A gift, again. She had lost count of how many gifts Richard had given her in the short months. They had been married, jewelry, dresses, a villa in Italy. It wasn't about the wealth itself. It was about the fact that he wanted to spoil her. After years of being treated like an afterthought, she was finally a priority. But not everyone was happy. Daniel had always believed himself to be the center of the universe, the golden son, the one who would take over the family business. But now he was losing control. Sophia could see it in the way he tensed whenever she entered a room. The way his lips pressed into a tight line whenever Richard publicly praised her. The way he avoided her gaze at family gatherings, knowing full well she was no longer beneath him, but above him. And then there was Haley. His new wife was beginning to realize something, though she wasn't saying it out loud. The shine was wearing off. She had expected to be the center of Daniel's world, the young, exciting trophy who made him feel powerful. But now, she was just another accessory. And worse, she was replaceable. Sophia noticed the way Haley's laughter had turned forced at dinner parties, how she clung to Daniel's arm just a little too tightly, as if she was afraid he might slip away. She wasn't wrong to be worried. Daniel had traded stability for excitement, but excitement doesn't last. The real turning point came at a formal event, hosted by the Lancaster Corporation, a massive, exclusive gathering of CEOs, politicians, and elite business figures. It was Richard's world, and now it was hers too. Sophia arrived at the event on Richard's arm, dressed in an elegant midnight blue gown that commanded attention. Whispers followed her as they entered the ballroom. Not whispers of pity as they once had been, but of awe. Who would have thought? Daniel's ex-wife, now the most powerful woman in the Lancaster family. And the moment that sealed it all? When Richard raised his glass for a toast and formally introduced her. As many of you know, my wife, Sophia, has been a remarkable source of strength and wisdom in my life, he announced, his voice carrying through the grand hall. She is not just my partner, but an integral part of the Lancaster legacy. I trust her judgment as much as my own, and I look forward to building the future of this company with her by my side. The new matriarch, higher than Daniel, higher than even his own mother. The weight of that realization hit everyone in the room, including Daniel. His face had gone completely pale, his jaw tightening so hard it looked painful. Across from him, Haley's expression had turned into something close to panic. Was this what she signed up for? Did she really expect Sophia to fade away quietly? To disappear into the shadows while she played the perfect wife? If she did, she was tragically mistaken. After the event, the unraveling became obvious. Daniel's arrogance, the thing that had once made him so untouchable, was now his greatest weakness. He started drinking more. He made reckless business decisions, ones that Richard shut down without hesitation. And at home, Haley wasn't happy. Sophia caught the moment at another family gathering. Haley and Daniel standing at the edge of the terrace, whispering furiously. "I don't know what you expected," Haley hissed, her eyes flashing. "You didn't tell me she'd be this." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustration written all over his face. "She wasn't supposed to be. She was supposed to be gone." Haley let out a bitter laugh. "Well, she's not. And now she's your stepmother." Sophia, sipping her wine from a distance, smirked. This was only the beginning. Sophia had been waiting for this moment. It happened at yet another extravagant Lancaster family event. This time, a private gathering at the estate, reserved only for close relatives and business associates. As always, she arrived on Richard's arm, exuding the quiet confidence of a woman who had already won. She could feel Daniel's eyes on her the entire evening, watching, brooding, seething, and then finally he snapped. She had just excused herself to the terrace for a breath of fresh air when Daniel followed her out. "Tell me the truth," he demanded, his voice sharp with barely concealed rage. "Did you marry my father just to get back at me?" Sophia turned slowly, letting the question hang in the air between them. She took her time, tilting her head slightly as if considering it. Then, with a small knowing smile, she answered, "You wanted someone younger. I wanted someone better." Daniel flinched. She watched as realization dawned on his face, the slow, gut-wrenching understanding that she hadn't just moved on. She had moved up, beyond his reach, beyond his control. And nothing he could say would change that. "You're unbelievable," he spat, taking a step closer. "You think this makes you powerful? That wearing my father's ring makes you more than what you are?" Sophia just laughed, a soft, amused sound that cut through his anger like a blade. "Oh, Daniel," she sighed, taking a sip of her champagne. "You still don't get it, do you?" She stepped forward, lowering her voice to a near whisper. "I'm your stepmother now. And in this family, that means I outrank you." His face turned red. He hated hearing that. And then, Richard's voice cut through the air. "Everything all right here?" Daniel stiffened, spinning around to face his father. Richard stood just inside the terrace doors, his expression unreadable. But there was a warning in his gaze. "Daniel," he said, voice calm but firm. "You and I should have a conversation." Sophia watched as Daniel's entire body went rigid. They both knew what that meant. She didn't follow them inside. She didn't need to. Instead, she leaned against the terrace railing, listening just enough to catch Richard's low, even tone. "You're going to stay in line, son," Richard said. "You've already embarrassed yourself enough." There was silence. Then the unmistakable sound of a glass being set down with force. "Or what?" Daniel finally asked. Richard chuckled. "You know exactly what." Sophia smirked. She had learned something valuable about Richard over the past few months. He didn't issue empty threats. And Daniel? He knew that too. While Daniel's downfall was delicious, there was another layer to this revenge that Sophia enjoyed just as much, watching Haley squirm. It was almost too easy to see what was happening. She had won the man but lost the lifestyle. Daniel, once confident and arrogant, was losing everything. He had lost power in the family. He had lost respect. And with Richard cutting off certain privileges, his financial security wasn't as solid as it used to be. And Haley? She had not signed up for this. Sophia had overheard one of their fights just a few nights ago. "You said we'd have an empire," Haley hissed at him. "That we'd build a life together. That you were the heir to all of this." "And I was," Daniel snapped back. Until she came along. Sophia had almost laughed. The woman who had once paraded herself as Daniel's prize now looked trapped. Second-guessing everything, she was starting to realize that she wasn't the love of his life. She was just a midlife crisis. As the evening wound down, Sophia let herself soak it all in. The power shift. The chaos she had left in her wake. The poetic justice of it all. Daniel had tried to destroy her. And instead, she had become the one thing he never saw coming. She didn't just get even. She got ahead. And watching Daniel realize it, watching him lose control, lose power, lose everything, was the sweetest revenge of all. The Lancaster estate shimmered in the golden glow of the chandeliers, the warmth of a grand holiday gathering filling the air with quiet elegance. Sophia walked through the halls, the soft rustle of her emerald green gown, brushing against the marble floors, her home. Her life now was one of power, respect, and complete independence. Things Daniel had never given her. The days of playing the dutiful, overlooked wife were long gone. She was no longer an accessory to someone else's success. Now she was the one they all looked up to. Richard had made sure of that. His love was not just lavish, it was unwavering. Unlike Daniel, who had taken and taken until she had nothing left, Richard had built her up, had made her a partner, not a possession. And tonight, as she hosted her first holiday dinner as Mrs. Lancaster, she finally understood something. She had won, completely. The dinner was in full swing when the tension in the air shifted. Sophia felt it before she even turned around. A presence, one that didn't belong. And then there he was. Daniel stood in the doorway, hesitant, uncomfortable. His usual arrogance was nowhere to be seen. His once polished suit looked slightly disheveled, and the weight of his own mistake sat heavily on his shoulders. And he was alone. Sophia smiled to herself. So Haley finally left him. She had seen it coming from a mile away. The younger woman had held on as long as she could. But eventually, she had realized the truth. That she had been nothing more than a temporary escape. A shiny new toy for Daniel to parade around. And once the power, wealth, and influence he had promised her started to slip through his fingers, she had done exactly what Sophia expected her to do. She left. Now Daniel had nothing. No wife, no control. No way to undo his own downfall. But the best part? He had to face her. The room had gone quiet, all eyes flickering between them, waiting for the inevitable. Daniel swallowed hard, forcing himself to take a step forward. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then closed it again. Sophia raised a brow, watching him struggle. And then finally he spoke. "Merry Christmas, Mrs. Lancaster." Ah, there it was. The final bitter acknowledgement that she had beaten him. It was everything she had waited for. She tilted her head, letting the title hang in the air, feeling its weight settle over him like a crown he would never wear. "Thank you, Daniel," she said smoothly, her tone light but victorious. "I do hope you enjoy the evening." He nodded stiffly, his entire body language screaming defeat. And as he moved toward his seat, not beside his father, not in any place of honor, but far down the table, where he now belonged, Sophia finally let out a slow breath. It was over. Not just the fight, not just the war, the resentment, the anger, the pain, because she had already won. She wasn't Daniel's wife anymore. She was his stepmother. And in the end, she wasn't just his past, she was his legacy.